Have you ever uttered the words, "It is what it is," out of frustration, contentment, or defeat? Northeast Delta Human Services Authority has a new radio show entitled, "It Is What It Is," with co-host and executive director, Dr. Montez A. Sizer. The show is moderated by co-host and public information director, Tennille T. Terry. It Is What It Is will address the individual systems we all encounter while journeying through life, be it mental, emotional, physical, or social. This show gives perspective on navigating the process of being and becoming your best self. Because when it's all said and done, it is what it is. Tune in every Friday morning at 8 a.m. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another segment of It Is What It Is, the radio show sponsored by Northeast Delta Human Services Authority. I'm your co-host, Tennille T. Terry, and Public Information Director, along with co-host and Executive Director for Northeast Delta, Dr. Montez A. Sizer. Good morning, Dr. Sizer.
Good morning, Ms. Tennille.
How are you this morning?
I am doing great.
Wonderful, wonderful. And good morning, listeners. It is Friday, the end of the week. And before we kick this weekend off, we are here with another segment of It Is What It Is. And our topic for today's segment, navigating the system of ambiguity. Navigating the system of ambiguity. So when we talk about It Is What It Is, Dr. Sizer, before we even just kind of dive into that, let's discuss and let's define the word itself, ambiguity.
Well, that's a very interesting word, but in essence, it is something that is not certain. It is something that will have multiple meanings. And for those who are seeking something definite, ambiguity can be difficult.
Yeah. So it's uncertainty, basically. Just to kind of sum it up, it's uncertainty and something that could be difficult. And we've been getting, when people see the logo and people say, we've been hearing a lot about this, it is what it is, it is what it is. We say it all the time as a slogan and just kind of when we're talking about different things in life. So let's define, before we even dive into the system of ambiguity, let's deal with ambiguity from as it relates to it is what it is. So let's identify the it is what it is. What is the show? Like, what is it all about, Dr. Sizer? We've been getting questions about when people see that logo. They say, what is that about? What is it all about? So let's discuss that a little bit.
Well, the logo and the show, It Is What It is about certainty. It's about where one is factually. But that doesn't mean that people have to stay where they are. So again, the certainty in the logo, the certainty in the show, it gives clarity as to where people are. And it also helps people to know how they can navigate various systems and thoughts and other types of things to move into a different direction. But it is what it is if you choose to do nothing, and it is what it is if you choose to do something.
Absolutely. In this radio show, when you think about, it's sponsored by Northeast Delta Human Services Authority, the agency that we both work for, employed by the state of Louisiana. And when you look at it, the work that this agency does, and this radio show alone is definitely utilizing a different media mode and a different model. Normal, typical state agency and governmental work doesn't necessarily look like this, and definitely don't have radio shows or talk shows entitled or with the concept of it is what it is.
Well, that's correct. But we recognize that the area in which we work, we cover 12 parishes. And those parishes are diverse. Those parishes are unique in their own way. In order for us to meet unique needs, in order for us to get information out to the various publics that make up our region, we have to do things differently. Because doing things the same old way does not yield a positive result for the majority. And we recognize that there are a lot of people who don't have adequate transportation. There are people who don't have phones. There are people who don't have a lot of different types of things. But our goal is for those who are suffering from mental illness, addiction, development disabilities, and need an array of prevention services, is to get information to them in a way in which they can receive it, understand it, and then act upon it to change the trajectory of their condition.
So changing the trajectory of conditions of those that we serve with this radio show, this definitely, wouldn't you say that with a radio show of this type being on a local station but broadcasting throughout the world and having that type of reach, it definitely opens up it opens up the market, and you're able to touch a lot of lives that you wouldn't necessarily touch within the Northeast Louisiana or the 12 parish region that you serve.
That's correct. And there's a saying that I'm fond of, that if you want something different, you have to do something different. If you want something different, you have to think differently. And we recognize and respect the station in which we're on because of its niche population and its demographics. Because all demographics are included when we talk about those things that are good and when we talk about those things that are bad. And what I mean by bad relative to what we do, that is people who suffer from mental illness, addiction, development disabilities, and need an array of prevention services inclusive of gambling as well as tobacco services. And we all suffer no matter what race, class, or creed. But what we can do with this type of program is receive valuable information about how to receive help, and once we receive it, what to do with it to sustain the help that we have been provided.
You know what? You mentioned something about not regardless of race or class or creed. And one thing while people journey through life, ambiguity is not a respecter of person. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are. It will find you, and life itself will happen to. It happens to everyone. It's just a part of life. It's not a matter of if life happens, but a matter of when life happens.
And certainly it's a matter of when, and when it does, what do we do as a consequence? And it is what it is. And so now having a sufficient information and resources to act upon those things to change one's life, if it's negative to the person, is what this show is all about. Because, again, our ultimate goal is to help people be as self-sufficient and get the resources and the help they need so that they can be productive citizens to themselves, their families, and this community.
And Dr. Sizer, I want to take a quick moment really quickly for those who are listening in. If you would like to call in, you can call in by dialing 318-324-1500. Again, 318-324-1500. And when you look at the reason for It Is What It Is, this show being an avenue to help others and give perspective, to help others navigate through life and through the obstacles of life and give different strategies, it's important with everything that's going on in the news. When you look at TV and you look at current events, you just never know. There's so much uncertainty. And this type of radio programming right now, the importance of that, just kind of talk a little bit about that, the importance of it in today's climate.
Well, it provides another vehicle for the diversity of thought around very, very significant and challenging issues that's plaguing our region and plaguing our country. But when you have ambiguity, people oftentimes become very anxious and fearful and resentful. And so certainty around where one will work, where one will go to school, what they will eat, where they will live, these things oftentimes will give people a certain sense of calm. But when there's not clarity as to where people will live and where they will work and these types of things, it creates anxiousness and ambiguity. And so human beings, to a large extent, like familiarity. They like certainty about their situation. And when that certainty is not there, then it creates a void, and it allows any type of negative thing to particularly invade that void. And this is what we have to be very, very cognizant of, and make sure that we provide enough stability for those who are seeking it, so that they don't have to be fearful and anxious about anything in life.
Right. So not being fearful or anxious about life, and as you journey through life. So we take a deeper dive into the topic of today, navigating the system of ambiguity. So now that we know, and we've broken down ambiguity itself being the uncertainty and the thoughts of uncertainty, When you talk about a system, we often use this word, and sometimes we may not even think about exactly everything that a system actually is comprised of. So when you talk about navigating the system of uncertainty, what type of system? Where is the system?
Well, I think everything is a system, and we are simultaneously in multiple systems. And so, for example, you're born into the world. The world is comprised of multiple systems. If you look at your own physiology, you have multiple systems within one body, right?
Yeah.
You have a nervous system, and you have other different types of systems. And so systems is a universal set of processes that are interconnected to create multiple outcomes depending on what system one is in. But the uncertainty is not knowing how all of it works together. Now, very specifically, if one sought services from a medical system or a mental health system, for those who are not aware of how to navigate it, the ambiguity can create fear. The ambiguity can create lack of proper understanding in terms of how to get what they need from that system. Not knowing that system could create a bump in the road or a setback because they haven't been able to be prepared to understand how that system actually functions, which means they have to be persistent when you engage in any system, or not know what resources or not know what to bring to a system to gain access to various types of services. So systems is multiple. I mean, you're born into a family system, for example.
Mm-hmm.
There's an economic system.
Yeah.
There's a school system. There's a governmental system. In their governmental system, there are multiple levels. There's a local government. There's state government. There's federal government. And all of those governments work simultaneously. So it's not like they're not working. So what I'm saying is that there are multiple systems working all the time. The goal for the human being is to understand what that system is and how they can make that system work for them.
Yeah. Yeah. So first, identifying the system or whatever it is that you're up against and realizing that it's a system, it's multi-layered, multifaceted with different components of an entire system. And when you look at the ambiguity of it, the uncertainty of it, first understanding, taking a step back, looking at it for what it is will help process and help you to be able to mentally understand. Is that what you're saying, Dr. Sizer?
That's exactly what I'm saying, and that's the importance of this program, because we're talking about and shedding light on how those systems function. It identifies where a person is relative to the issues that they are facing, and then is helping to lessen the ambiguity by saying, okay, well, what is it that you're facing? And now let's identify the proper system, and now let's identify ways in which you can gain access to that system based on what it is you identified as a problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? We're going to take a quick break right there, and we will be right back with more of It Is What It Is and navigating the system of ambiguity.
You're listening to Northeast Delta Human Services Authority radio show. It Is What It Is with Tanil T. Terry and Dr. Montet A. Sizer.
Northeast Delta Human Services Authority manages the operation of community-based programs to improve the quality of life for individuals with major mental illness, developmental disabilities, and addictive disorders.
We utilize a nationally recognized integrative approach that identifies and addresses both behavioral and primary health care needs.
Our agency operates through collaboration with regional partners in business, prevention, education, and care throughout Caldwell, East Carroll, West Carroll, Ouachita, Lincoln, Madison, Franklin, Morehouse, Jackson, Tensas, Richland, and Union parishes.
Northeast Delta HSA is devoted to delivering programs and services that encourage citizens of Northeast Louisiana to reach their full human potential.
3 tenets guide these efforts: excellent customer service, greater access to services, and competent quality care.
For more information, visit our website at www.nedeltahsa.org.
Music is a bridge between the material and the spiritual. My name is Harvey Lauer, and I'm 82. As a blind person, you have to be aware that nobody can tell you what you can or can't do. You really have to try things. My folks got me a little radio in 1940, and that was the best Christmas present I ever got. When I was 11 years old is when I started to play music, play the piano, and then the accordion, and then the cello. My wife, who was also blind, was a good cook. When she died, that's when I started Meals on Wheels. America, let's do lunch.
It's Meals on Wheels. 1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
I believe I can touch the sky. I think about it every night and day. Spread my wings and fly away. I believe I can soar. I see me running through that open door. I believe I can fly.
So when we're talking about, we're back with It Is What It Is, navigating the system of ambiguity. And so we've defined that ambiguity is uncertainty, believing in yourself. So identifying ambiguity in life and your personal life, the not knowing, the uncertainty when it comes to whether it's healthcare or medical complication or illness diagnosis. Uncertainty can be very, very frightening and debilitating.
It certainly can. And let's assume that one finds out that they have sickness in their body.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the natural instinct of that person would be, well, what's wrong?
Yeah.
And to the extent in which the medical profession can identify it, that would generally increase the anxiety of the person that's dealing with the illness, because they're looking for something to identify their feeling in their body with. And so while if the doctor came back and said it's diabetes, it doesn't make it better, but it makes it certain. And now they feel like, now that they know what it is, that there's a course of action that they can take to help to, remedy or find some way to be able to manage the diabetes. Mm. So it is what it is that they have diabetes. But the certainty around knowing what it is and then doing something about it allows them to cope and manage and then hopefully live a productive life.
Yeah. When it comes to someone actually just sent a message in, so ambiguity, uncertainty in relationships, and whether that's the level of care or trust for a person or a relationship, and even most recent with Valentine's Day just passing this weekend, when you love someone very much and that person loves you too, just even as reminders to remove uncertainty, because as we go and journey through life, uncertainty surfaces in so many different ways. And when we look at that component from a personal aspect of it, how important is that to be able to reduce the uncertainty for others or the ones that's in your life or that's close to you?
I would say that we have to be certain of what we mean by love. Because love has been very commercialized. And if you love somebody based on what they do for you, as soon as they stop doing it, then you don't love them anymore. Mm-hmm. Or you fall out of a relationship with them because things are not going your way. So we loosely throw that word and that term love around. But love is unconditional. Love is something that is sacrificial. So it's not what they do or don't do. If you love them in spite of. And so that's the agape love. That's the true essence and definition of true love. It's not this commercial love. But now having said that, the certainty and the what makes a person stable in the relationship is feeling like there's a reciprocal nature of what they feel, and it's being reciprocated back in a way that feels good and valuable to them. Mm-hmm. So it's that symbiotic relationship of what they give and what they get is on an equal playing field. And so therefore, they're comfortable in the relationship. Mm-hmm. It's only when people start to do things that are not normal to what they have grown accustomed to that creates worry, doubt, and anxiety that then puts jeopardy into the relationship.
Yeah. So being able to take some of that out of the relationship, how important would you say that that is, or just speaking on the importance of that, or if you have the opportunity where you see that there may be some uncertainty or some doubtfulness, being able to ease that person's mind, and not just in romantic relationships, just even in general, even with parents or just friendships.
Well, that's a very complicated and complex question, because oftentimes if the person's got unrealistic expectations of someone else, or if the person is not happy with themselves, it's going to always be variable and difficult for them to interact and be comfortable with somebody else. So in other words, if a person is doubtful, resentful, angry, unstable, well, then oftentimes they project that onto others.
Interesting.
And
so hurt people hurt people.
Equally as rocky, because it's an outer reflection of their internal disposition. So that's why I say it's a complicated mix. This is why people should, when they engage in any type of relationship, it should be authentic. In other words, it should be what it is. And then people come together around respect, but an authentic expression of who they are, so that people can really know who they are. So it lessens the ambiguity. Now you know what you're getting. And therefore it's a negotiated set of terms between the two individuals, for example. And then if the two can agree on what that is, then neither one should be surprised.
You know, we live in times in a world where when you're dating or when you meet people, sometimes you often meet their representative first.
Well, this is correct, and look at the consequences. Look at the divorce rate. Look at all the other. Look at the breakups. Look at the differences in terms of between groups and external and intergroup related strife and chaos. It's because of those things you just mentioned. The world is evident of broken relationships.
So we talked about identifying ambiguity in the personal, in your personal life, and those different components, and looking at some different scenarios there. But there's also, we have to identify ambiguity in the workplace or in business. Like, how would one lessen ambiguity when it comes to work? Because it can often bring on panic attacks and all types of things. So how could one lessen the uncertainty and all the effects of uncertainty when it comes to the workplace or business?
Well, it's about personal and environmental fit. And so there's some environments where ambiguity is necessary and reinforced. If you are a creative arts major, you don't want certainty all the time. You want space to be able to reflect and engage in the creative space.
Absolutely.
If you are a chemical engineer, you're looking for certainty. Or if you are in other types of fields, you're looking for certainty. And so at bare minimum, then, you have to know what the organization's vision and mission is, because that anchors should anchor the things that people do, the people that they hire, and the policies and procedures that are instituted to help bring about that vision and mission. And so that lessens the ambiguity, because a person, generally speaking, will need to know, depending on what field they're in, what it is that they're expected to do and what success looks like. And when they don't understand that can create some difficulties.
Interesting. We talk about ambiguity, and with Lent just starting on Wednesday, and for different reasons, and people take the 40 days, and that's their time to to clearly identify and focus and sacrifice and fast and planning and to seek answers and to some degree, that's almost a system within itself operating to lessen the ambiguity in life or religion or what, everyone has their different reason for doing it, but that's lessening ambiguity as well from a different component, different avenue.
It certainly is crystallizing the issue or need that the person identifies as being something that they need to work on. But the question becomes why? Are they doing it because it's something that they're very serious about, or is something that they're guilty about? Or is it something that others told them that they should be doing or that they perceive they should be doing, but it's not necessarily core to them? This is why people have ideas about what they want to stop doing or what they want to do but never complete it. Because in order to complete something, you've got to be able to navigate the ups and the downs of life and the circumstances that they can't control and be persistent in it in order to accomplish it.
In accomplishing that, let's discuss some of the positive and negative effects of owning ambiguity, because that's one thing. When life is uncertain and things will come up and catch you by surprise, and when you expect it, you're at an advantage, honestly, because you're expecting things to happen. But if you have it planned out and you're meticulous and everything has to hit its point, and when it doesn't, people can often fall apart. So let's discuss some of the positives or even negative effects of owning ambiguity or understanding and expecting it.
Well, what you said, it really speaks to the paradoxical nature of things. The more you try to control, be less ambiguous. When it doesn't go your way, then things fall apart and then becomes ambiguous. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So people who are trying to control it, when they can't, it becomes ambiguous to them. So therefore, they fall apart, and then they try to fill that void or that vacuum with things. It could be irrational. It could be all kinds of things, and that creates further difficulties. On the other side of the coin is that recognizing life is what it is, because we cannot know all there is to know about life at the various levels in which life happens. And that recognition says that, okay, when things do happen, that we've got to pause and reflect and then think about what's the best course of action. And who do we identify to help us think about, and what resources do we need to help us deal with this issue called life? Now, that doesn't mean that people should not have goals and aspirations, because they should. But they should also know that just because you have them, that doesn't necessarily mean all the time that you will get there in the way in which you think you've planned it out.
Okay. And right there, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more of It Is What It Is, Navigating the System of Ambiguity.
It is what it is. But how do you perceive what it is? Tune in every Friday morning at 8 a.m. for a new outlook and strategies to handle what is addiction, mental health, prevention, developmental disability, and so much more.
As an 18-year-old, I let my mistakes kind of take over my life. I was 0.5 credits away from completing high school, and I didn't do it.
10 years later, at age 28, Jackie finished her high school diploma.
When I found out that I was pregnant, I know that I had to do something for myself if I wanted to make her a better person and provide a better life for her. My family never stopped pushing for me to be better because they knew what I could become and who I could become as a person. My support team is amazing. The educational director, my sister, and even my 7-year-old daughter has just been more than the support that I could ask for. I've been given an opportunity, and I'm just thankful for it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
It Is What It Is addresses the individual systems within one's journey through life
and bridges the gaps between one's current state and future reality.
This show gives perspective on facilitating the process of being by navigating the mental, emotional, physical, and social systems.
Each segment breaks down and dissects a different system and its components.
Sponsored by Northeast Delta HSA, co-hosted by Executive Director Dr. Montez A. Sizer and Public Information Director Tanil T. Terry.
Friday mornings at 8 a.m. KMOV 105.7 FM and 540 a.m. And welcome back to It Is What It Is, where we're discussing navigating the systems of ambiguity. Dr. Sizer, bag lady.
That's a very, very interesting way to come back on the air.
I would say so as well. And over the break, we actually got a question, and we're going to have to unpack this bag. So bear with me, everyone, while I read this question and we kind of break down the components and unpack this bag. So one of our listeners she sent in, she is in a relationship with a guy who she feels is stringing her along for 3 years. There hasn't been a commitment. There hasn't been anything to finalize or to say that they are completely committed to each other. However, she still allows access to her life, her body, her feelings, and everything that is associated with her as a being. So she wants to know, how can she reduce this feeling of ambiguity in her life? A little bit of quite a few components there. I tried to go as slow as I could.
No, that's a very, very good question. It's a very, very common one, in that you have people who are involved in relationships, but they have different levels of commitment to it. And this is what I meant when I made the comment earlier. You have to know what it is you are expecting from or out of the relationship, and make sure that other person understands what you specifically mean and what you're after. And if they cannot give you that, then one will have to think about how much of themselves do they give. Because it's like this. If you continue to give and they don't give what it is you are seeking, the question becomes, have you articulated that? And if you have, what did they say? And if what they said was not sufficient or satisfactory to you, then what is it that you're willing to do if you're unsatisfied, since you've made your points known about what you're after in the relationship? And if what you're after in the relationship is meaningful and driven by goals and objectives that you have, and values that you are and that you feel passionate about, and if that's not being reciprocated in your relationship, then unfortunately you have to ask yourself the question about, and ask that person the question about, is this something we want to continue to do in the way in which we're doing it? So I'm certainly not suggesting that you in a relationship. I'm certainly suggesting that you may want to consider how you talk about what it is you're after within the relationship, and being honest and open about that to see whether or not that other person can help meet what it is that you're after. And if they can, wonderful. And if they can't, that's a decision between the two of you in terms of how you continue to engage in that relationship.
Okay, so I have to be honest here. I didn't fully unpack the full question. There's a part to that question, but I wanted to break it up so that we could actually go through it and take a deeper dive and understand and break down those components. So the other part of that question, Dr. Sizer, is she feels that the years that she's invested, that she just can't walk away from the time that's invested. And
so, okay, so that is a decision. And so then if she's involved in a relationship and she's invested the time, what if she's invested another 20 years and it's the same thing?
Mm.
So that's 20 more years that she'll say, well, I'm 20 years deeper into it and I can't walk away. So essentially what she's saying is that the more time I put into it, then I'm hoping that somehow that the other person would see it the way I see it and meet my needs the way I need my needs met.
Mm.
Now, it's possible, but there are other things that will have to be done in terms of being very, very clear about what it is that she's after, and making sure that the person understands what she's after, and then know what that is if he attempts to do it. But the bigger question is, what if he doesn't?
Mm-hmm.
What then would she do? So will she continue to go another 20, 30 years? And if so, it is what it is, because the person hadn't changed in 20 years. The person had changed in 7 years. The person had changed in 17. That's possible that they could. But if the person is still unhappy about what's transpiring during that time, then the only way to not be upset or concerned about what's happening in the relationship is to adjust one's perceptions and one's expectations of the relationship. Because if your expectations of the relationship is not consistent with the reality of the relationship, you will continue to be frustrated, upset, and have ambiguous types of thoughts running through your mind.
And on that, I just want to just add this to that, listener, wherever you are and whoever you may be. Dr. Sizer mentioned the different levels of commitment, knowing what your commitment level is and that person's commitment level. But then I would also just ask yourself, how valuable is your time? Because if you're already 3 years in, and do you have another 3 years that you don't mind wasting in being in limbo, or another, an additional 20 years like Dr. Sizer mentioned? So I would, the question of value, like how much do you value your time or even your life? But to move along, we don't want to spend too much time on that particular question. When we're looking at ambiguity and owning ambiguity, just some of the positives in owning ambiguity or expecting it, when you embrace it, ambiguity can lead to discovery. Not knowing, when you don't know something, then you have to search it out. You have to seek out information, so you're gaining knowledge in the process. Ambiguity lends itself to the creative process.
It does, and so when you recognize that things happen, then when they do, you adjust.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's the power of knowing that you can't always control what happens to you, but you have some control in terms of how you deal with the situation.
Absolutely.
And so now life happened to you. Now you've got to make adjustments. And so now this is where you have to navigate and have sufficient understanding of your systems and your resources to know how to have to thread them in a way that they become a bridge to something else. So life can create progress. We don't know what pleasure is until we know what pain is, right? And so that's just the way life works. It's sometimes life happens not to penalize you, but to move you in a direction that you wouldn't ordinarily move yourself in.
Yeah. And some of those negative effects, when you talk about ambiguity, the time lost. You lose time in uncertainty, not knowing. There's no clear direction in that. And go ahead.
Yeah, and that's right. And so if you just think about the human condition, the issue of who am I, why am I here, these are all deep philosophical existential questions that we all face. Who am I? What am I to do with my life? How much time will I have? What happens when I'm gone? Right?
Yeah.
What gives me purpose? What gives me meaning? These are very significant questions, and so how we answer those will determine whether or not we have success or failure. And then sometimes, and then how we strategize around and how we associate and affiliate to do something to help us feel like we are doing what we are purposed to do, or do things that are meaningful to us.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break, and if you would like to join this conversation, you can call in at 318-324-1500, or you can send us a message on our Facebook at Northeast Delta HSA on our Facebook page if you have a question that you would like Dr. Sizer to address while we're on live. So in just a few moments, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back in just a few moments with more of It Is What It Is, Navigating the System of Ambiguity.
You're listening to Northeast Delta Human Services Authority radio show. It Is What It Is, with Tanil T. Terry and Dr. Monte A. Sizer.
Are you or someone you know struggling with mental health issues such as depression, severe mood swings, hallucinations, or emotional problems from a traumatic life event? At Northeast Delta HSA, we are inspired to catalyze and transform the lives of Northeast Louisiana citizens in our 12-parish region through outpatient mental health counseling, medication management, and outpatient services for addictive disorders. To find which of our 7 clinic locations is nearest you, simply visit our website at www.anydeltahsa.org or call us toll-free at 1-800-256-2522. That's 1-800-256-2522.
When Dad needed help getting around, I became his driver. Any daughter would do the same. But soon enough, he needed help doing more things, and it was up to me to be his personal shopper and financial manager, too. And before I knew it, Dad moved in with me, so I became his cook, his personal assistant, his physical therapist, and even his nurse. When I started taking care of Dad, I didn't realize all the roles I'd have to play. But no matter what, I know I'm still his daughter.
We understand the many roles you play, and to help, we created an online caregiving resource center. At aarp.org/caregiving, you can find resources and connect with the caregiving community. Together, we can better care for ourselves and the ones we love. Visit aarp.org/caregiving to learn more. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Smoking is the leading cause of preventable death in Louisiana, taking the lives of 6,500 Louisianians each year. At Northeast Delta HSA, we are inspired to catalyze and transform the lives of Northeast Louisiana citizens in our 12-parish region through our tobacco cessation program. By providing cessation counseling, nicotine replacement therapy, tobacco screening, and non-nicotine medication. To find which of our 7 clinic locations is nearest you, or to learn more about our tobacco cessation program, visit us online at www.anydeltahsa.org or like us on Facebook at Northeast Delta HSA.
If it's meant to be, it'll be, baby, just let it be. So won't you ride with me, see where this thing goes. If it's meant to be, it'll be, baby, if it's meant to be.
If it's meant to be, it will be. Welcome back to It Is What It Is, Navigating the System of Ambiguity. If it's meant to be, it will be. Dr. Sizer, comments on that?
Well, it is what it is, and I think that that's a truism, that if it's meant to be, it certainly will be. But now that it is, what do we do as a consequence?
Yeah.
And so if it is, okay, and if it's something that we are happy with, then how do we do more of it? If it's something that is and is something that we can't tolerate because it's not consistent with who we believe we are, then what do we do to change it? And so life is about being and becoming at the same time.
Yeah.
It's about being and becoming at the same time.
And being and becoming opportunities within the components or the system of ambiguity, new ideas, being flexible to new solutions, or enhancing problem solving. And you brought up, you mentioned the environment, how the environment has to be a great fit and conducive to an individual. And so even in systems of work, the mission, the mission or the vision for a particular organization or company may be a great fit, but then when you get inside of that, then you have to think about culture of a particular company. And sometimes, let's just say, let's use me for an example. I'm a creative, and I know, like, with creativity, you definitely need space and opportunity to be able, I need space and opportunity to be able to do my job. And so having the atmosphere and the correct or appropriate environments. So one thing I know that, micromanagement doesn't work for me as a creative. And so just even talking about a good fit, let's just kind of discuss some of those different things in the workplace that you mentioned with the environment.
Well, there's not one environment in any workplace.
Yeah.
There are multiple environments because you have multiple people and personalities.
Absolutely. And
you have multiple divisions that's made up of different people and environments. And so also recognizing that everybody has to be flexible, because it's not always one way, and certain things happen to organizations and within various organizations and sections of organizations that's outside of everybody's control. So the key is being ordered but flexible. Musashi, a great samurai swordsman, was fond of saying, and he's known for this idea, ordered flexibility, that you have to be ordered in your approach, but you also have to be flexible based on the environment and circumstances in which you are confronted with. And so nobody should be or should feel that it's all their way all the time, because you can be a creative, you could be a very disciplined, ordered person, but at the same time, things happen that's outside of everybody's control, and you don't always fit. Your perspective or their perspective or whoever's perspective it is, it doesn't always fit. And then the goal and the mature thing to do is to recognize is that it's all about adjustments. Because if all life is getting it the way you want it, then you will stay frustrated and disappointed, because life just doesn't work that way. Nobody is always 100% getting life the way they want it on their terms. And those who do that or believe that that's the case, this is where the ambiguity and the anxiety and the frustration comes in. And oftentimes it's perpetual, because you see that from environment to environment. People create environments. And so those who are never satisfied, no matter where they go, they will take that lack of satisfaction to where they are. And then that meshes with other personalities and styles, within also shapes and change the environment. So environment is not a stagnant thing. It's a ever-evolving thing that's made up of many people and the pieces that's within that environment, including its policies and procedures that's internal and external to it.
Absolutely. Even with, I think, working in groups and in the workplace or the workforce with cross-functional teams, sometimes when when teams are built and you have all these different you have everyone representing a different background, and so their perspective will be totally different. But with the uncertainty and the ambiguity that comes along with it, that's also an opportunity to be innovative. If everyone's flexible and open to new ideas and enhancing, it's an opportunity to create to definitely create something different, and just be able to start a new process and be creative and enhance the problem solving, because what one person, an analytical mind won't see it the same way from a creative mind. And so the ambiguity within that cross-functional team, definitely they're able to enhance each other, because where one person will be heavy on the creative side, then the analytical person can say, hey, we need to balance this out. Let's take a look at this, or we need to also incorporate this. So ambiguity in the workplace could actually, it definitely can be beneficial if approached and handled correctly.
That's correct. And I think you hit the nail on the head, is that if it is acceptable to those who are involved, because again, relationship is a reciprocal sort of thing. much like music, if you or the orchestra. You have all types of instruments playing different types of sounds, but the arranger and the person that is sort of navigating the various talents and the musicians bring out that discrepant, often noise to create something that's very, very pleasant and pleasing to the ear. And so it's knowing how to then take the various pieces that could be often on its own very, very negative sounding, but you take it and meld a harsh note with a soft note, and then you get harmony. You get a proper blending, and so that's why the environment's got to be conducive to order and change at the same time, and making sure that the people that's within it understand that it's not always their perspective or always their opinion that is right. Everybody is subject to changing. Either you will change on your own or life will make you change. And to the extent in which people don't change, they continue to be frustrated, upset, and the like, because life does not always cater to an individual's ideas of who and what they believe life should be, because some things are just out of our control.
Yeah, I agree. So you just said something, Dr. Sizer. We're going to have to put that on our social media, and basically that life will make you change, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, you will change.
And the fact of the matter is, we're changing every day. Everything around us is changing. I'm not the same person I was 2 hours ago.
Right.
My body's growing and changing, and everybody is changing in terms of their physiology, in terms of life, in terms of circumstances. The only thing that doesn't change is something that's dead. Life is about moving processes towards a desired state. As long as you have movement, you have a chance at life. It's only when it's stagnant that it's dead or soon to die.
And you know what? That segues right into the last component that I want you to discuss really quickly, Dr. Sizer. So something that's dead, the ambiguity of hope, the uncertainty of hope.
Well, hope is the substance of things is hoped for, which is the substance is the faith. It's the belief that it will come to being, and that's powerful. In other words, you are seeing it manifested before it actually manifested. Why? Because you can see it in your mind, and you're willing to put the work in to make it happen. So in other words, even though life is happening, you are doing your part to adjust to life. You're doing your part to identify the resources to help create that bridge towards that desired outcome. Hope is very, very powerful. It'll allow a drug addict to become sober. Hope is powerful. It'll allow a person that's sleeping under the bridge to have a home. Hope is so powerful that it'll create a person that's smoking cigarettes to stop.
Yeah. And on that note, the power of hope and navigating the system of ambiguity, the uncertainty, environmental fit is important, communication, being open to discovery and being open to accept and to change and value, and being open to new ideas to move things forward. So that's all that we have for today for It Is What It Is, Navigating the System of Ambiguity. Catch us every Friday morning at 8 a.m. right here on KMOB 105.7 FM and 5:40 a.m. Have a great day.
You can bear. You stood right beside me, yeah, and I won't forget. And I really love.
You've been listening to Northeast Delta Human Services Authority radio show, It Is What It Is, with Executive Director Dr. Monteg Sizer and Public Information Director Sneal T. Terry, giving perspective on navigating the process of being and becoming your best self, because it is what it is.